Hmm. Uh, huh?
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, featuring your hosts, Taylor Field and Ruben Olson.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Cryptid Clues. I'm your host, Taylor, and today we're joined by a very special guest, Colin. Now, in a moment, Colin's going to join us and kind of give us his perspective on a situation that occurred with him and Maddison. And if you remember Maddison, she was one of our first guests ever on the show, which is actually available now only on our Patreon. And basically, they went out into the woods on a little bit of just a back road trek before Halloween, and something very, very eerie happened. So again, we'll just be joined by Colin in just a moment to give us his perspective on what actually happened there. Before we get into that, a couple of plugs though. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca as our website, CryptidClues on our social media channels, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and you can also find us again on that Patreon where you get ad-free exclusive early episodes. On top of that, if you want to say hi or share anything with us, you can send us an email, cryptidclues@gmail.com. But without further ado, Colin, thank you so much for being here today. I'm super happy to have you. I'm very curious now because we've had Maddison on the show and she explained her side of this experience. Now we finally have you here explaining your perspective. So from start to finish, just take us into it.
Well, I'm trying to remember back over 10 years now. It's probably closer to 12. I actually don't remember the year. I think I was in grade 12 at the time. And we went out for a drive one night. It was the night before Halloween, so the 30th of October. And she wanted to show me where she had gone to leadership camp out at the Bible camp. So we went for a drive, and usually we just wandered around the city and that, and made our way out. And she said, well, let's go out the heart, and we'll go down here and we'll make our way to where the Bible camp is. So we start driving out there, and it's, I don't know, 30 clicks out of town, sort of ish kind of thing. And we get to this dirt road, and we start driving down the road. And you twist and turn. There's a couple forks in the road, but nothing major. And it has signage, so you can't really get lost. It shows you where you're going out there. And we got to, I don't know, 5 kilometers down this dirt road, roughly. And as you get down there, you're coming up to it, says, okay, you're entering this area. And we came to a fork in the road, and it says to go one way, you go to the youth camp, the other way goes to the intermediate camp or whatever. And we wanted to go to the youth camp. The youth camp. So we I think it was right, and go down this road, and it's literally from that fork in the road to where we came up to a sign that says no trespassing, blah blah blah, private property, was less than a kilometer. So we drove up there. It's like 10 o'clock at night, roughly 9:30, 10 o'clock, and we get to the stop sign. It's like, okay, well, let's not go any further. Let's not go onto this people's property and get arrested or something. So we turned around. As we're heading back up the road, but halfway between where we came across that fork in the road and the other area, suddenly there's a whole ash tree falling across the road. Just right there. And it's like, well, that's weird. Maybe I took a wrong turn or something. So I turned around and went back towards the camp again. And I'm like, turned a U-turn in the middle of the road, turned back. And I'm like, there's no other way to go. So this tree has fallen across the road in the, dare I say, 3 minutes that we were actually gone. And it was like, oh, this is scary. And it's fallen. And I looked off to the side, and you could actually see where the tree had been cut or severed, like perfectly by something. Something had gone and went and cut it and fell it perfectly across the road. and I was scared. And I remember looking at Maddison and going, I was shaking because the nerves and the adrenaline started going. And I was like, well, if I get out, will you go with me? And she said, no way. Because I was going to get out and move the tree, like just kind of shuffle it off to the side. And I thought better of it, and I didn't get out of the vehicle. I ended up putting the vehicle in 4-wheel drive, and I went to the narrowest end of the tree, and I literally just punched it and drove straight through the tree. And I remember white knuckling it out of there. I don't remember how fast, but it wasn't wasting any time. It was, we're getting out of here. There's something really creepy going on right now that sits uneasy with me to this day.
I'm curious. So do you know if like there was anyone kind of residing in the campsite or anything, or did you pass anyone on
We didn't
traffic?
We passed no other vehicles that night, and did not see anybody out there. Not to say there wasn't somebody or something in the bush right there, but in that amount of time, it's like somebody had to have known we were going out there. Like it's like somebody had to have known or seen us coming that way and did that. Or gosh, if I know.
Are there any houses out there, or is it just basically just the campsites?
Well, there is houses in that area, all through that area, but it's all ranch land and heavily wooded as well. But on that road, there's no houses off it. There's no driveways off it that I can think of.
So when you were observing and you could see that where the tree was just basically like, what do you think? Was it like a chainsaw kind of thing, like cut, would you say, or like an axe kind of?
I remember looking at it and thinking, well, one, it would take a lot longer than the time we were gone to cut something like that with a tree, or with an axe, a tree with an axe like that. I could only assume it was either a chainsaw or something else.
Did you have any weird, aside from being terrified?
I had a feeling there was somebody. I couldn't see anything because it's dark out. It's dark all around you. The trees from the side of the vehicle, or each side of the vehicle, maybe 5 feet away at most, the tree line. But when you get an uneasy feeling in your stomach, like something's just not right, I had that feeling. It was like, okay, somebody or something's watching us right now, and that's where I needed to get out of there.
Definitely. So the tree itself wasn't, in terms of like size, it wasn't super big. Like you're able to actually get through it. Then, like, I'm curious.
Yeah.
How would you?
At its biggest point, because all trees kind of taper to the top.
Yeah.
It was probably a foot in diameter.
Really?
12 inches in diameter, 16 inches in diameter. At its thickest, on the far end, the edge I drove through is probably 10 inches, maybe thereabouts. It wasn't overly massive, but I'd say it was probably 30 or 40 years old.
I'm also wondering, I feel like you'd hear something. I don't know. I wasn't there, but like, were the windows down? Were you blasting music, or?
Oh, we were always blasting music. It was always
right
the thing was music was always going and blasted. And I just remember getting to this. You wouldn't have heard anything but over the sound of rocks and dirt driving, right? So we didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. All I know is in 3 minutes' time, a tree ended up across the road. And thinking about it still makes my stomach uneasy. I don't even like going out that way to this day, because it's like, it just makes me feel uneasy.
Have you spoken to anyone that's gone up there and had any weird experiences like that before?
I've told people about this story, lots of different friends and people, and everybody always looks at it like, whoa, what on earth happened there? But I've never talked to anybody that's, seen weird things happen out there before. Not that I haven't heard of things happening in this area around us, but nothing specific to that.
I see. So kind of in retrospect now, what do you feel like was really going on if you were looking overhead and looking at this whole thing unfold? If you had to, I guess or formulate a perspective on it.
My mind prefers to go to the supernatural end of things rather than, chainsaw murder. So
Yeah.
that's what I keep telling myself.
Yeah, definitely. There's not too many chainsaw murders being reported, but there's a lot of paranormal things being reported. So
Yes. And I could almost think that maybe we spooked somebody or something that was there, but it was a pretty clean cut. It looked pretty clean anyway. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just snapped off. It didn't, or at least it didn't look like it.
Mm-hmm. I get too that like Halloween's just the cusp of Halloween. Maybe there was some people goofing around, but even then, it's still such an obscure thing to kind of rationalize.
Well, and we went out there like as a spur of the moment kind of thing. It was like nobody knew we were going there. We just, hey, I'm going to show you this area. Okay, so we went for a drive out there, and that happened. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like anybody would have had a chance to set us up for it either.
Hmm. I'm curious. So, outside of this experience, what is like your overall experience or interest in like paranormal or cryptids and all that kind of stuff?
I find it extremely intriguing and highly plausible that there's a lot of things we can't explain or have yet to be found. My experience other than this, though, is basically just this. I haven't had any really spooky experiences otherwise. A couple unexplained things with houses and stuff moving, but that's hard to say.
What kind of household, like moving things? I'm curious. You piqued my interest there. I'm curious.
Oh, there's been a couple scenarios actually at Maddison's old house. I swear that house was haunted. There was a couple times when things happened. Like I remember walking past a bathroom once, and actually she was with me, and walked by, and the place was just ripped apart. It was just us at the time, and went downstairs and then went back up. And when we went back up, the whole place, the toilet paper rolls, everything was put back neatly, and we'd been the only ones in the house.
No kidding.
She can back that one up. She'll remember that.
Really? So it was all just torn apart, everything?
Yeah, like the stuff had been taken out under the sink. The toilet paper roll had been unwound. I remember that much. I remember having that same cold, uneasy feeling, and then being like going back later, a couple hours later, and we would have been the only ones in the house, and it was all put back.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really weird.
Oh, it's really, really weird.
I know I mentioned this on the previous episode I did. My uncle, he's been to several homes that he's resided in that have had like haunting occurrences where apparitions will form and things will be moving around. I'm curious, how old was this house that this happened?
It was built in the 90s.
Really? So not too old.
It wasn't crazy old. And that's why I always thought, like, did somebody pass away here? Like, what? I always wondered that, because there was some weird stuff like sitting there, and then the cupboard door would just kind of like open up and then close again.
Really?
Yeah. And it was very slow. It was just like opened and then just kind of closed back over. But it would do it on its own, both directions.
Would this be right kind of in front of you, or was it like a corner of the eye kind of thing?
No, it was kind of, actually, you heard something and you turned around because the living room kind of backed into the dining room and kitchen. It was like one big open area. And I just remember like turning around and looking and seeing this one cupboard door by the stove, and it just kind of opened up 3/4 of the way, and then it just kind of shut itself again.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever feel any uneasiness in select
All the
rooms
time.
over? Oh, like in the whole house or in
In the
specific
whole
rooms?
house.
Really?
The one that didn't make me feel super uneasy was the basement. The basement always felt okay, but it was the what I found uneasy the most was the upstairs. The upstairs, so something about going upstairs always left a pit in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
The upstairs, that there was always felt like something was wrong. And it definitely gave you that vibe of you want to like run up the stairs, run down the stairs. But the basement, the main living area was not so much the kitchen area, okay, but upstairs, like this threw alarms like crazy. I never could explain that one.
Interesting. Have you felt that in any other homes, or was it primarily just that one? Because you start to get very sensitive to these things and receptive.
You can. That's the only time I've been somewhere where I kind of felt like that. I get some weird feel. I've had some weird occurrences in my own house, but that's mainly with my dog and staring down the hallway at nothing for like 5 minutes at a time. And it's when he'll turn his head and he'll like perk his ears up like he's listening to something, but there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing that makes me feel that emptiness, like that pit you get. That's the only time I've experienced that, and that was mainly only the upstairs of that house.
Interesting. Very interesting. I'll have to ask her about that.
Oh yeah, ask her about it.
I've never heard of that before.
Oh yeah, she can reiterate that one.
Interesting. That's funny you mentioned too your dog just staring down the hall and clearly focused in on something too. I'm a firm believer animals have that. I mean, well, not have to be a believer. It's factual. Animals can sense that.
Pick up different spectrums of sound and sight, and it's hard to say like what are they actually seeing. Are they think they're hearing somebody or something, right? Being somebody who lost a family member within the last 4 or 5 years now, he does that, and it's like you're looking right at grandma's room, you're looking right at her room, and it's like, what are you doing? Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's yeah.
Was that something that your dog started doing after your family member's passing?
Yeah,
really?
Within the last couple of years, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Noticed it, and it's creeped my dad out a few times, more than a few times. It's creeped him out really bad to the point he's like telling the dog to just stop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, that is fascinating. So I'm curious then. It sounds like you've definitely got this huge interest into the paranormal based on like these experiences and such. How do you feel on I'm gonna be bold. How do you feel on Bigfoot?
I think he's totally real. I think I haven't gone into and studied the research behind the Sasquatch and Bigfoot and Yeti and like any sort of cryptid stuff in that sense, but I do believe it's all related to a same family of creature that is very good at hiding.
Mm-hmm.
They make themselves not seen all that much because they're just good at it. I totally believe that there's something out there that we just haven't found, or certain people don't say, right?
Yeah. When you look at how much forested area there is,
it would only make sense.
It only makes sense. There's so much of the human population, at least in Canada, is closely kind of, I mean, cities are cities. Everyone, you get up and work your 9 to 5. You're in the cityscape, and you're used to it. And you hear about a Bigfoot or a ghost, you're like, oh no, I don't know about that. But when you step out of bounds and you go out camping, I don't mean camping an hour out into the bush.
Oh, you're talking,
I mean, like you're going like a few miles out into the
middle of nowhere.
Country. Yeah, that's when some things may really start happening that don't make sense. So, but most people don't do that. You go into the woods thinking you're going to come out and you're just a tourist, basically. But if you go in and try to kind of live like a resident almost, I don't know if that's the right way to say it. I mean, things might happen. You might kind of pull in some attention.
Well, that's just it. And you're alone, right?
I've heard a lot of people say, for the heck of it, go out and try camping on your own. I don't know if I have the guts to do it yet. I'm building myself up to it, but I just feel like that'd be such an experience to be out in the middle of nowhere and just camping alone in a
I'd
tent.
have a hard time. On my own, I think I'd psych myself out. I'd psych myself out pretty sorry about that. I'd psych myself out if I was in the middle of nowhere by myself.
Not sure, like my eyes playing tricks on me. Or
what am I hearing? Is it just your imagination? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, Colin, again, thank you again for sharing this experience and this other perspective of the story. Is there anything else you wanted to cap off with from that main experience that you had? Anything you missed you want to highlight?
You know, I feel like I might be forgetting something, but I can't think of what it is. But the gist of it is I have no idea what happened that night, other than somebody or something was definitely there. And what was it? I have no idea. I would like to think it was paranormal or supernatural of some sort. But I have no way to prove one way or the other.
Let me ask you this then, because that you said it was about like not even 3 minutes when you went and returned. Tree was down. Now, as far as intentions go, you say that you attribute it to being something paranormal. Do you think the intent of this tree appearing on the road was to get you out of the vehicle and then move to the next step of whatever was going to occur, or just to kind of keep you there and hold you in that area?
I have thought about that question many times. My mind keeps going back to, I think whatever it was wanted us to get out of the vehicle is what it was. And I wasn't waiting for something to just appear outside my window either. So I got out of there.
Yeah, no, good on you. You don't get out of the vehicle.
Yeah, no. There's too many movies that say that's a bad idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Well, other than that, that's all I've got for now.
Brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, Colin. I really appreciate having you on the show.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.